Dear friends, it will be the next talk in the cycle Our Modern World. I think it is number 7, but could be wrong, but it doesn't matter that much. And the topic should create shivers in us. The name of the topic is war. 3 letters, war. It, by no question, most horrific result of stratification. Before the stratification, let's safely say, 10,000 years ago, the existing hunters-gatherers living in their groups, extended families, we can call tribes, whatever we like, it didn't involve into wars, though they were occasional conflicts which result so-called massacres, but it can't be compared to wars in format or in numbers or proportion, etc. Why wars arose in our human journey? It was several factors which more or less arose together. The dominant factors, without which it wouldn't have much sense, though they could be still on some wars, but rather it was the issue of material possession, possession of land or precious items like gold, etc. The religion did not play, interestingly enough, such a dominant role in wars, in the very early wars. Later it became more and more important. There was this possession was caused the desire of one state to acquire land and acquire slaves from another material possessions. That was the root cause, but it would not probably happen if not the discovery of bronze. Before, during the period of copper, there is no wars to be noticed because copper was too soft to be used as the tool for killing other people. Bronze was. So, discovery of bronze was another factor. And the third one, which is intimately connected with the first, was desire to dominate. It was sometimes completely had a purely psychological desire of pride, of egomania of one ruler to suppress another or something like that. These wars were quite horrific. They first noted wars were in the earliest big, highly civilized, culturally developed country like Sumer, where one city-state was warring with another, but we don't have too much information. Disaster happened when the invasion of the pastoral people, the Akkadians and then Elamites, attacked Sumer, and then it was already large-scale war and large-scale murder and destruction. Essentially, the model of war was to, in the early part, was to kill the men because they were able to defend the place, and enslave women and children. That was the model. Though some, like Mongols, sometimes indiscriminately wiped out the whole population. If you like numbers, probably the greatest murderers were Mongols. It's very difficult to say how many people perished because of their invasions, because there are scattered documents about it, but it's assessed like safely about 50 millions, which was, again, we don't know how much population it was, but the countries which they invaded, it was more than 50%. They wipe out and murder. They were ruthless, clever, extremely strategically well organized and dedicated. And interesting, it was nothing to do with religion. They were quite tolerant to all the religions. They just needed people and land. And there were several Khans first. Genghis Khan and ended up the last one of these great conquerors was Kublai Khan. And they attacked northern part of China, all this what will be Persia, part of what it will be now Middle East, like Baghdad, etc., country which we call now Kazakhstan, etc., and large portion of particularly the whole Eastern Europe. They ended up in Poland when I think Kublai Khan died, and all the commanders ran back to Mongolia to fight about the dominance between themselves, and they didn't recuperate their power. They were gradually pushed back. So that's Mongols. Well, we have to wait a little longer for this sum of scale, but in a sense of percentage, Romans were pretty efficient. When they finally destroyed Cartagena, they apparently here, Romans were very good in numbers, so they kept it. I think 62,000 people were murdered 50,000 people enslaved, and city was totally destroyed, no trace. If somebody was trying to be not agree with them, they were pretty ruthless. Nearly in the same time, there was great war in India, where the Emperor Ashoka attacked Kalingas, and apparently there was one battle where was killed 200,000 people. Can you imagine? 200,000 people. If the figures are true, it took a long time because all they had swords and some sort of lances, etc. So they have to physically work hard to murder so many people. Apparently, after he saw it, results of his desire to rule, he got converted into Buddhism and became one of the most good rulers in history. And it was going on and on and on, but once with the rise of Christianity, they were also added to it. The religious war, the biggest of them was, of course, Crusade. How many people perished, it's difficult to say, because the Crusaders were dying, and the places where they were going through, as a matter of fact, Christian, they were murdering, destroying, etc. So Crusades were pretty effective as far as killing. And then there were wars, war here, war there. And that brings us to the previous century, where we witness several incredible wars, like the First World War, where was around several million. I don't give the figures because they become meaningless, were killed. And of course the Second World War, where more people were not only killed by war, but by extermination carried by Hitler, but he wouldn't be able to do it if not the war. Though his contemporary Stalin was doing it, actually, we can't call it war, but mass murder, we could call it. The biggest of his mass murders were what Ukrainian, well, we could say they starved to death from 8, the statistics are discussing at least 8, at most 11 million people were starved to death. Well, how many people were perished during the Cultural Revolution in China? It's difficult to say, a lot, but enormous amount of people were killed by the Maoist regime in Cambodia, I think. Like half of the population were murdered. Maybe not half, but big portion. And now, here we are in the new millennium, in 21st century. there is no yet war on the scale of first and second, but there are ongoing wars all the time. Iraq, now Syria, various internal wars like in Libya, and we are just on the verge of any insane ruler may cause a bigger war. We don't know, but and we got so desensitized, we consider war as something completely natural for humanity. It was reinforced by, I think, forgot the name of the British philosopher who said the statement in Latin that wars are as old as humanity. Well, he could say so. Philosophers say many idiotic things. That's their many specialty. Anyway, we can't blame him. He didn't know archaeology. He knew only history, and as history is concerned, the wars indeed were accompanying the history of humanity. He had no idea what was before the written records were created, that there was no wars. The wars will essentially also have, by religion, I mean ideologies, because like Hitler's war was fueled by two aspects. He presented to Germans that German needs more room to live and expand, so he motivated that that's the purpose of his war, and another that Aryan race, which is according to him a dominating one, should be basically eliminate everybody else. Well, what Aryans, it is a questionable thing, but unquestionably people referred as Aryans in the history about 2,000 or 3,000 years ago were the invaders, the steppe pastoral people, who destroyed quite a lot of various civilizations. Usually, coming now back a few thousand years backwards, the wars were at the beginning, as a rule, large-scale wars were by invasion of pastoral people who were much more aggressive, and they were already had one internal war behind. They enslaved women. They introduced patriarchy, which was not very critically important in at that time agricultural society. So, and slavery and patriarchy and war were going hand in hand. Hand in hand. Okay, now why I am saying all of that? Very simple, to show two things. That A, war would disappear if there is no fueling that desire to own and desire to dominate, and supporting them ideologies. they have no sense. No sense, because, as they say, the only good result of the Mongols' invasion, because of their destruction of certain agricultural society, lots of forests were regrown and absorbed the carbon from the atmosphere. But I don't think that was a major problem at that time. Well, now it is, but I don't think wars will solve this problem. It will have to be billion people already eradicated in these ways. Okay, dear friends, so that's the part of our modern world, the war. Modern, I'm taking it from moment of stratified society till right now. And as long as stratified society will exist, the danger of explosive wars, revolutions will accompany it. That is the end. We don't have only bronze as armor. We have far much more efficient equipment to kill others and destroy. So that's my appeal. And we have to get rid of stratified society, one way or another. Here is proposed wisdom society. If there is anything better than that, I am for it. But I think I'm talking about wars, because to see that that is not only the destruction of climate and other things I will be talking about, are danger of stratified society, but wars. Okay, on this cheerful moment, I think I will end and see you again.